Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Massage Owner. We're with another episode of VSW Podcast. Today, we got a very special guest, the one and only Bloody Billy Vaux. Welcome.
What's up, my friend? How we doing tonight?
How are we doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We went to the gym tonight. We got a little bit of a workout in. We're getting ready for some upcoming stuff. We had some stuff that just happened. Feeling great. It's Monday. It's the start of a new week. Things are, it's still early. Things can get better. They can get worse. I think they're going to get better. But yeah, I'm feeling great. So now, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good. Mondays aren't too bad. It's kind of actually a lot of people, their weekend's over and it's like Monday begins and, get back to all the stress. For me, it's quite the opposite. Like the weekends are really busy because, I try to go to wrestling shows. I try to do all the family stuff I can do. My wife's off only on the weekends. So we're trying to do everything we can possibly do, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. So everybody's happy. And then, by Monday, I'm just like, whew, kids back in school. I can chill out a bit, maybe play a video game, take a little, breather.
Yeah,
Not worry so much. So I don't really mind Mondays. Mondays to me aren't that bad. And it is the start of a fresh week. And you never know how it's going to unfold. But, staying positive, I feel like if you stay positive going into Monday, most likely you'll have a good, week. I feel like the people that go into Mondays and they're always like, oh, it's another Monday, another week, they've already set themselves up for failure.
I'll add on to that. I'll tell you that if you walk into every day with a positive mindset, I know it's going to sound weird coming from me, anybody that's familiar with me, but you walk into every day with a positive mindset with gratitude in that heart, mind, and soul, the possibilities are endless. So whether it's a Monday, a Sunday, a Thursday, a Friday, doesn't matter which day of the week it is. Yeah, those possibilities can always be endless if you got the right mindset going on.
And I take it that can transition into other things. For instance, you're a pro wrestler, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you get, a booking. It might be not the biggest spot in the world, but it's a booking, right? So you can look at it two ways. Well, it's just another booking for me to just to do whatever, and it's not going to go nowhere. Or it could be like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's a new booking. Yes, it's not a big spot, but there's going to be some new people there. I might learn from this guy. I might meet this guy. Like you don't know, and you open your mind up, you open the possibilities up, and that's when things kind of spark and fly.
Absolutely. Uh, I've had some great ones over the years, and I've had some steaming turds. Um, but at the end of the day, whether it was a steaming turd or a really great one, 9 times out of 10, I had fun with them. So yeah, especially this time around, it's more about having fun. I don't really care about calling them steaming turds or not. We're just out there to have fun before my body says I can't do it no more.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the enemy. The wrestler's worst enemy. It's not the mind; it's the body.
Oh yeah, the old bump card, as they say. Mine's been punched.
But let me ask you. So, when did you first get into wrestling? When did you start wrestling?
I mean, if we want to go way back, I was throwing family and sharpshooters in like 1990, 1991. I was perfecting my sharpshooter as early as 91 and, well, 90, I guess. But a fun fact about that, I sent a family member into back surgery eventually because I pulled back on the sharpshooter a little too far. Didn't perfect it yet. But in terms of actually being around the ring and all that stuff, it was about 2003. I was involved with the very infamous WAW. It's got a little bit of a reputation. Yes, it does. But I hung around that for quite a number of years. In terms of going out on the independent scene after getting some tools of the trade from Rob Vituli, PT Jester, uh, Alex Jace, and then even along the way, Rob Marsh. 2016 is when we really went out there. Is the era of violence. It was myself, Rob Marsh, Chad Epic. Pretty much stayed around Maine, but we did a little bit of Massachusetts, a little bit of Rhode Island, even one wild ride to New York to work for ECPW Hudson Valley. That was nuts. But yeah, in terms of like being around the independent scene, it was 2016. As I like to say, I screwed around, excuse me, in WAW for off and on all that time in the ring that was going on there before I decided to be serious about it and go out and try to do something with two of my best friends.
I remember those early '90s wrestlings. I too had some cousins, and I too like to do sharpshooters and figure fours, and sometimes, yes, I would not know the right pressures or anything. Of course, we're kids, so 90% of it was done, stiff as stiff could be. I never forget there was one time, I was at my friend's house, everybody's, play fight and play wrestling, whatever. And I decided, my friend's brother, he was there, he was a little bit lighter than anybody. So I was like, I'm going to try this. So I put the kid in a tombstone pile driver. And I had no idea what the hell's going on. Because, I seen just, what I seen on WWE. I'm about 9, 10 maybe, tops.
Yeah.
So I just, thought I did what I saw on TV. I literally dropped the kid down on his head.
Did he die?
No, luckily nobody got hurt, nobody died, no broken nose. Like looking back at it, it scares me, but he just had a bloody nose. But I brought him straight down on his head, like no cushion with the knee, nothing. I didn't realize what was going on in the pile driver tombstone.
Oh.
I was a little kid. I had no, yes, I knew things didn't, might have not have been real because obviously, at some point you start saying, these guys are taking a lot of punishment. Why are they still moving? But I didn't know, what was what. Again, I'm a kid. But you made good. You were saying, you got into WAW. Now you said you were kind of toying around there, but I mean, I've seen some of their product. It's not like it's terrible.
Well, I'll be objective because I think we can be, 20 years after the fact. The problem with WAW is there's a lot of self-training going on. There were some people that had received actual training that would come in and pass on that training, but there was a lot of self-training. And there was a lot of air of, we were acting like pro wrestlers without actually paying the dues in some cases. Like some people really peacock their way around everything. And it created just a negative perception that I think they were able to clean up in later years. Like, I know various places worked with them. They did a show with the Lowell Spinners. I think that was involved with Big Time Wrestling. Proving Ground used many WAW folks.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Delia bringing shows down to even my hometown in Watertown a few times, under different names, Outlaw, Championship Wrestling. The last two have been known, but a lot of the WAW guys have been used. They look good. Like I said, it's legit, but I get what you're saying, and I think that kind of goes with, the era of wrestling early, 2000s. Schools weren't this big thing because you got like I feel like a lot of people were backyard wrestling, right? Like ECW was huge.
Yeah.
All these other hardcore promotions were huge. It made it look easy. A few documentaries came out. People were just like, you know what? We could just do half of this ourselves. We don't need the production. We don't need any of that. We just need to fight and have storylines. And so people did go, and then some people did go to schools, but school's expensive. So if one good person went to school and could train 5 of their friends, well, why not, right?
Yeah,
the problem is if everybody doesn't learn at the same rate, not everybody as good as that one person, then it's like, I get that.
Yeah, looking, being in the trench at the time, it was like to all that viewpoint, right? But looking back objectively, like I said, and that's not to say it didn't have its bright spots where it was able to be shown that, all right, it's not all garbage, but
no, I mean, I even said myself, I've done some I call it pay for play wrestling, where like, a promotion will come in, we'll rent out a space. Most people, have some training, but no one's actively training. And, I like to film, so, they do matches and shows and film the film. And again, I call it pay to play because you're paying, there's no real fans,
Yeah.
But people get to work their matches and have some fun without all the, the stress of having real fans and having to be perfect every time. But,
Yeah.
again, it's not where most people want to be, I think, in the industry. Is it a necessarily horrible starting place? No. That area of wrestling, it's better than nothing. But
Yeah.
if you can get yourself out of there, like you said, you can get yourself legitimized, whether it be through, normal training or some kind of established training, learning just the art and how to wrestle and being a better worker and getting yourself up there and then, getting noticed and going to other promotions. And I don't see the issue with it because even promotions have started in very humble spots and moved themselves to the top.
Oh yeah, no, and like I said, there's a number of folks have gone and done things to better themselves and get out there. But uh, yeah, like I said, it was just one of those things where looking back objectively about saying I screwed around there for a number of time, I look at that as what could I have done with that. It's weird because people get a little touchy about it, but I look back at that and say, instead of spending all that time in some weirdo boxing ring and taking off all those punches on the old card, what could I have done with that time instead? Like it was, I wouldn't go back and change it necessarily, but at the same time, it's one of those what ifs. Like Chad Epic and I like to say that if we had been on the road together 10 years ago, we'd probably be dead. So that's something to kind of consider that, maybe we would have, partied a little too hardy and wound up in a ditch somewhere crazy. Like we like to be a little creative about our demise.
But
Um,
Chad Epic parties.
oh, Chad Epic. Oh my goodness. He is like a steel trap when it comes to the old Jack Daniels. He'll
Really?
drink you. He'll drink you under the table.
So I was
And
gonna
then
say, your next move in wrestling was pretty smart. You aligned yourself with probably, one of the greatest managers on the scene, and you don't have many managers on the scene, granted, but he knows how to do it. He does it well.
what's really funny about it, and I've told this to Chad, so I'm not talking shit. We didn't need Chad. I am well versed in promos and all of that sort of thing. I can speak. I'm good. Rob Marsh, don't ever give him a microphone. But the fun part about aligning with Chad was in a previous life, our two characters hated each other. In fact, there's a match from the WAW days that exists out there that when I watched it 8 years later, I sent him a text message and said, I'm sorry for how disgustingly rude I was to you in this match. But our characters hated each other. Like we used real life issues. Like he attacked me over a medical thing. I called him out over his parenting. We used some real issues. And then eventually we just kind of came together. And because, like I said, we didn't necessarily need Chad, but wanted Chad because, like you said, he's one of the greatest managers around. And I knew that we could have a lot of fun, the three of us. We could get in a lot of trouble together. So it wasn't necessarily, do we need this manager? But do we want the manager to add to the chaos? And that's exactly what Chad brought to the picture because sometimes you just don't know what Chad's going to say. You don't know what Chad's going to do. And that same possibility existed with me. And it definitely existed with my good buddy, Rob Marsh.
It's awesome, though. I mean, I like Chad. I think he's a good guy, and he's got a wealth of knowledge, and he's got a lot of good connections. He knows a lot of people. He knows his way around this industry really well. He knows who to stay away from. Like he's someone that he's kind of a go-to person if you have questions. Like if you're questioning something, he's a great person to ask.
And he rescues dogs. So, all around good
Well, yeah,
guy.
that's besides the other thing. His charity work that he does on the side and in between everything else is just, that's commendable by itself.
Yep, absolutely. Love that man.
But yeah, so now when you started to do this, what made this different than the WAW days? What made it feel more legit? Was it just the promotion you were going with, where you were going, the travel?
Yeah, the whole 9 yards, merchandise, coming up with, buying shirts and stickers and buttons and traveling to the different places and, the car rides or, figuring out where we were going to stay, who we were going to be with, what matches we were going to have, shooting the promos. It was when it was the WW stuff, it was, one day a week, we're set in one place. We kind of know what we're doing. And then with the independent scene, like now, instead of paying, were being paid. And it just, everything about it felt, I feel bad saying it like this, but it just is the way it is. I'm not a sugarcoater when it comes down to this.
No, I
It,
know that.
it was more fulfilling than the WAW era. And that's why I look back at it and say, what could I have done differently? Like, I made a lot of great friends, a lot of great memories, and ultimately it's all a part of the story that I've lived until now. But you can still look back and say, what if? Once I got
Well,
out with,
yeah, I mean, there's always what ifs, and there's
yeah,
always, could have beens, and there's always, this, could have been done differently. But again, like you said, everything that's led up to that has brought you to who you are today. If you didn't
yeah,
have that, happen, who knows where you would have been, what would have
precisely,
happened, exactly, and you wouldn't have had maybe the friends you have today.
exactly.
Um, sometimes it's about the journey more than the destination, and then maybe that was the case with that. But it sounds like after that, you kind of found your niche in wrestling, right? You're having a good time. You're doing the merch. You're going wild out there. You're doing the tag team scene, which is a lot of fun, right?
Yeah,
And I feel like tag team wrestling, has kind of been lost in the era. It's hard to get. Oh, you can see, tag a lot of the tag teams because when I grew up, tag teams were wild, right? You had British Bulldogs and Park Foundation, Demolition, even Conquistadors, goofy ones. But the thing was, is they looked like tag teams. They dressed together. They came out together, and all of a sudden they kind of broke apart. People started coming out separate. Egos, they both have nice characters. So one wants to come out to their entrance, one wants to come out to theirs, and you get a lot of makeshift teams that came out. So when I see good tag teams, and it's kind of funny because he's got like two good tag teams, Chad. But you guys, and you had Middlesex Express, another great New England tag team. Um, it just enthralls me because I love that kind of wrestling. And I feel like a lot of it's been lost. Now there is great tag teams still today on the scene, but it's not nearly as many. Not nearly as many.
when
But
when we first started being a team, the scene was super duper heavy with tag teams. There was us, there was Middlesex Express. The Hoods were still operating before they. I think they're broken up right now, but the Hoods were around. You had the Mainstay Posse, later known as MSP. The Street was coming up from New York to work in Maine. That's six right there, and the heavy hitters were still around. Cool People, just all those different tag teams. There were so many different possibilities. And one of the only, we got to mix it up with a few of them, but the one that we wanted to, and we still to this day are trying, the two Chat Epic teams, the Aero Violence and Middlesex Express. And I'll give you a little scoop right here. Before an injury and a show being canceled, it was on par to happen this month.
wow, that would have been fun.
Yeah, we were. There was supposed to be a Newton show again, but that venue is being renovated, and so ultimately, the decision was made to just postpone. But I had been personally trying to pull those strings to get Rob Marsh to come to Newton, and to get Stephen Lust and Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon to
Well,
chill for a minute if
I
they're
have
still having heat with
so
each other.
I have to say it was a funny thing because I got into wrestling, obviously like I said as a kid, right? I grew up in the '80s. Wrestling was big. '90s wrestling was huge. You had all this stuff going on, Attitude Era, everything, and then I took this long ass break. Like life happened. I started doing other things. I got into other things. Wrestling, didn't pan out the way I wanted to kind of pan for what I want to do personally. So I just did other things. And it all looped back around, through doing YouTube and doing skits and stuff. I was finding comedy and I wanted to do something comedic, and I was watching like funny things, and some Macho Man promo popped up. So I clicked on it and I showed my friend at the time, and he had never seen it. And he just got enthralled by it, and it brought me back to what my childhood. And I'm like, this is kind of funny, but it's also kind of cool. And so it made me want to do some more research about wrestling again. And I started to watch a little WWE at that point. Now Bray Wyatt was starting to do things that were really cool, and I started to get interested in that. And then I started to check out the indie scene. Went to Dedham, saw some shows there. And then 2019, I really started to go into like more shows. I started hitting Beyond. I started hitting, NCW, all these other shows, and then 2020 came around, and that's when I really, I got really into it even more. I had all these tickets, I wanted to go see all these shows, and they had that Newton show. It was the second one, not the first one was with Sabu. I didn't make it to that one. Second show comes around, and I walked into that, and it was right before the pandemic, like literally maybe the week before. And it's still a surreal moment because I met so many people in that show that would just change the way that I look at indie wrestling, like for the better. Like that was the first place I actually saw Pimp Daddy Appleson, and he was, working. Well, I had seen him a little bit on tag team, but he was actually working a match, and he was working a corner for somebody else to become good friends with Tony Spencer. That was the first time I saw Tony Spencer work. My friend, that I thought was, is a cool person, Dick Lane. He was at that show because I had known him from NCW. He had went in there. You mentioned Jester. I saw him work for the first time there. Flax, I actually met Chad Epic for the first time there at that same show. Because then I went there because I wanted to see Isana, PDAC, and Dick Lane wrestle from NCW at the time. Because that was one of the only promotions I'd known, and they were really close to my house. And it was funny because, like I said, I met so many people there that would just, like I said, change the way I looked at wrestling. Same thing with like Dirtbag Dan was at that show. I talked to him for a little bit. We became, kind of friendly. So many people, and it just, a week later, wrestling was done, and that was almost pretty much like the last show I went to. So for months, like that was the only memory of wrestling I had on my phone. That's the only footage I had. So like, Jester's actual choke slam to finish his match was my first video that took off to like 500,000 views because like I posted it and they saw it and people were going nuts over it. And like it was the first time I had any kind of viral success was with that video. So there's like so much that happened on that show that I became such a fan. And then like I did some research and looked and then I found the WAW stuff. I found Outlaw Championship Wrestling stuff. So every time I come back, I try to go to that show. And then the last show that was there, I actually saw you there, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun night. I had a lot of fun. I had 5 days notice about doing that match.
And you were supposed to just come in, referee? Well, I thought it was going to be referee.
Yeah, initially I was supposed to be the special guest referee. And then the other guy that was scheduled for it pulled up with a knee injury. And Delilah reached out to me and she goes, hey, any chance you'd want to do a street fight? And life personally at the time was pretty gnarly. So I was like, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's do it. So ended up going and doing that match, which is funny because you talked about the show right before the pandemic. I was on that show and had one of my favorite matches that I've ever had with Theodore J. Liftington.
Okay, yes, I know the match.
Then,
I just didn't know your name, and so and that's I was in wrestling. I didn't know people.
So that match happens there, and then the next time that I have a match in public is that Newton show that you just referenced. So there's 4 years in between those two. So it's kind of funny that we met at this May one, and then you were talking about your memories from the pre-COVID one. You didn't know me at that point, but it's just funny that you have such great memories from that because I also have a great memory from that show with Mr. Liftington. And then 4 years later, getting to go back and have one hell of a brawl with Johnny Psycho.
Yes, that was a hell of a brawl. And funny thing about that show, and I will still blame it to this day because I am 99% sure that it might have been Crispin Coles that spread the pandemic because that night he was already sniffling heavily and had a lot of masks. He was handing out masks. And this was before any mandates, any COVID, anything. He was already into it, man. So it was pretty weird. But he was one of those wrestlers that, again, the first time I saw him through the pandemic after, like I kind of, went backwards and watched his old matches. Now I remember the Liftington match. I want to go back later and look at that footage. I upload all my footage to like an Amazon account. so I can
Yeah.
like kind of go through each show and kind of see what I got. But again, that was just like I said, such a memorable show. It was brand new again to the indie scene. So seeing all these characters again come to life was new to me. Because when I was little, went to an indie show, I'll be honest, it sucked. The workers that were there that were, the promotions workers, I had, no interest in seeing them. They had no gimmick. They were not memorable. And I went there to see, Honky Tonk Man and Warlord and the people that were taking the photos. When I stepped in 2017, 18 into a wrestling, it was a totally different world. Everybody had characters. I remember that show, that's where I first saw Flash. He's coming, I see this goat come running around handing out layers. That's wild to me. That didn't exist when I used to go to wrestling. So, I saw all this new stuff and people doing choke slams and, showing the goofy side of pro wrestling, that it can be fun, but also, colorful and bright. It just brought a whole different perception of things. But then I want to hear your name actually again. It was funny. I ended up getting rolled into running a show in a UFC cage, and Tony Spencer mentioned your name about maybe doing a death match against you. And he threw me some figures. He was like, you should reach out to Billy. If Billy's into it, I'll do a death match with Billy inside the cage. And he gave me the prices. And I'm like, okay, well, I can see what I can do. And then the show ended up getting canceled anyways. But I was just like, Tony's one of those guys. I like Tony a lot. But he after that show, we started talking and just getting friendly and just because he didn't know who I was, and then by that point, there was already when I got on to the scene, I had changed my name because I didn't want to I just had it. My son was born a couple of years prior. My wife was like, "You're talking to all these wrestlers. You're talking to all these people. You're trying to run a podcast now. Try to separate it all." I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but change my name. So I changed my name, to a nickname that I kind of made up when I was doing cannabis reviews for dispensaries. So I changed it to that just to kind of keep things separate, so people wouldn't go after my child, and I kind of did that. So he's asking me, "Who are you? I never seen you on the scene." All these questions. I'm like, okay. I do podcasts and this and that. I'm not a wrestler. I'm not here to try to wrestle you. And we just became friends. Sometimes late night he'll message me 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, 12 in the morning.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sometimes it's pretty good conversation. Sometimes he has some interesting things to say. Sometimes it's just like, oh, well, congratulations.
Well, I think it's no secret that I don't like Tony Spencer. A long running thing that people thought was a gag on Facebook was "fuck Tony Spencer." Very much believe in that. And anytime Tony Spencer wants to throw down in a UFC cage or any sort of cage, I don't even need a cage. I will cut that man alive. So yeah, I'm sorry that he messaged you at 2 o'clock in the morning. That sounds terrible.
So you have real beef with the man. Like,
Not
yeah, like well, not real, like real beef, but like, it's like half shoot, half work with them.
You could say that. I mean, Tony Spencer is an interesting cat. Tough talk, Tony Spencer, with his interesting singlets and all of that sort of thing about him. He's just got a certain air of you want to punch his face in. So call it real, call it whatever
He just
whatever we
invokes.
want.
He just kind of invokes something in you that might
Yeah,
not be like. It's not even. It's like one of those faces you just want to punch kind of deal.
precisely. There's a number of people that make me want to do that, but Tony Spencer, he's at a top of a list. Tough talk, Tony Spencer. If you're listening out there, pal, you want to get inside a UFC cage, I will cut you up, carve you up.
See, that's real heat though. He can draw. See, that's pretty good though for him in that sense.
Yeah, he needs me to draw that kind of heat. He thinks he's good at drawing heat. He ain't nothing.
But yeah, I met a lot of interesting characters that show. So that's it. I didn't know that you actually didn't wrestle in between that. I figured you wrestled in Maine. In between that, maybe after pandemic era. But then I started, like I said, I started kind of following you. I think we, got in the friendly loop. I started getting more when the pandemic ended. I started getting into more main wrestling. I started taking the hikes up to Randy Carver and seeing, Limitless Wrestling. Fell in
Yeah,
love with Limitless.
that's a great outfit.
And I just support that probably, as much as any other promotion. But it's something about it that just captured me. That makes me want to do the 3 hour drive. And then I reached out even further. I went out Proving Grounds and got to the North Shore. Checked out all sorts of shows that year when the pandemic ended. But I started to meet again a lot more people. And came back into a mix of things. I just kind of followed you. You're posting, things that I have to say were interesting because they were real. You weren't posting about, just typical bullshit that most people, post about. You were posting about, I would see things, yes, wrestling related, but also about, real feelings, real life, real difficulties, real things happening, how to handle it, how not to handle it, how you're handling it. And when I start to see that kind of stuff, I started saying, well, there's a real person behind it. I want to get to know that person because they're interesting to me. It's not just some kind of character, a script, or written out, social media algorithm. There's a real person in there doing this shit.
Yeah, that's been an interesting ride to share and go through. I mean, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I mean, I'll tell a story.
Yeah.
Uh, since the last time I was, you thought maybe I'd done some wrestling in between. Um, the match that I had with Theodore J. Liftington, I suffered a re-injury of my back. My L4, L5, S1 discs got completely bulged out again. I thought I moved an organ. Um, and so at that point, basically, wrestling became not a thing I could do. Even once the pandemic eased up, by that time, talk real life, my mental health state was just in a serious decline. Had some death, job loss, just a lot of different things, health issues, and things went down the drain. And it's a long, drawn out story, but at the end of the day, the mental health ended up costing me everything that mattered. Um, but in all of that happening, as crazy as it is to say, it set me up on a different path to be able to work on those things. And a big part of it has been sharing those experiences, like you said, the ups, the downs, how I'm navigating it. And I don't put everything out there because there's a lot of it that happened that is very deeply personal. And people who know me know exactly what has happened. But I think we can surmise what losing everything that matters means. We don't need to go into the crazy detail.
No, and I get that, and I've seen that, with people that, whether it be, substance abuse, whether it be mental health, whether it just be, could be gambling, could be any kind of addiction issue, anything. People can lose it all. Me personally, I suffer, from a few different mental health issues involving anxiety and panic attack disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder. And so when I start to read other people navigating through these things, to me personally, it's inspiring because I know I'm not alone. I do share, myself some things if I'm having a bad day, but again, it's surface shit. Because everybody I get everybody has their own issues, so they might not need to read mine. And also I just never know who's reading stuff and what to put out, what not to put out. But sometimes I just feel like I need to share something. I need to get it out. I'm not one to really hold stuff back. I find that does more damage over the long run.
Yep.
And holding feelings back again, it just eruptions and it turns to anger and just all these other issues that it can arise. So I've learned that early on, but still, just seeing people that are doing, even if it's, more or less whatever issue, like I said, it's inspiring just to read people that are going through it just because, like, again, I don't feel alone so much. And you shouldn't either because there's people out there that you could reach out to as well ever need to just chalk, off, the main stage. I got, my DM is always open for people. always left it open for people, and that's why I do allow people to hit me up at like 2 a.m. if they want to talk and say something, because I don't know if I'm their person that they need to talk to at that moment, or they can't talk to somebody, they're feeling lonely or whatever the issue is. But whatever it is, I will indulge it, I will engage with it, as long as it's not weird or something, crazy sexual, something stupid. Um, I will sit there and, listen to people, because I do believe in mental health awareness, and putting that out there, because at the end of the day, in the age that we live in, it is a very big factor in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's another reason why I've shared so much about it, because you don't know who's going to read it and how it may affect them. So, like, yeah, I could go through all this silently with my friends and whatnot, or I could just share what I've been sharing, to bring more of that idea to people that, yeah, you're not alone. You don't have to go through it alone. You don't have to bottle everything up. You don't have to let it destroy you. Like, at the end of the day, the brain, it's a wonderful thing, but it's also a giant bully. And so in sharing that stuff, and in you sharing that sort of stuff, it's not, to me, it's not about likes, it's not about shares. In fact, the majority of the people that I've spoken to over my stuff, they're not reacting to my stuff. They're not sharing it or they're commenting on it. They're just seeing it silently, and then they're sharing things with me off to the side. So that part of it is very rewarding. It's weird to be a vulnerable person on the internet, because people like to make fun and all that sort of stuff. But to have anybody on a personal level come to me and say, "Hey, man, I've been seeing that stuff. I like that stuff. It's helping me a lot." That's just great, and that's I got to pull back a little bit on that sort of stuff for my own good. But at the same time, like you say, DM's always open. I'll talk to anybody anytime about anything, as long as I got the energy for it. And thankfully now I know when I do and when I don't. And most people are pretty respectful of that. Apparently, there's a rock throwing contest in my fridge behind me. But yeah, it's an interesting ride, and part of that little journey is what brought us back to the ring again.
And I think learning, though, that fine balance, even in whether it's with home and health, and all that, or even in the ring, when is it okay to, slow the pace down? Maybe I don't need to work, 3 shows a week, and maybe I can do just one, because I need it for myself. Taking that and understanding that, and then taking the steps to do that for yourself. That's even big in general, because a lot of people don't. They just either A, they don't know how, or B, they think they're just, they're too tough or too cool and they can just blow through it. And then eventually it bites them in the long run. You burn yourself out, which is a very real thing in life. Doesn't matter what you're doing, there's always a chance of burnout if you push too much, too fast, too hard.
I love the comparison of pacing of life versus pacing a match. That was a good one, man.
But you did make a comeback. You did. So you overcame the injury. I take it you eventually healed up to some extent, enough to be able to fight again.
Exactly.
I won't say, yeah, I'm not gonna say you're perfect unless they made you a bionic man, but yes, you can function, and and like you said, until the body stops and tells you no mas, you can keep rocking this shit. Um, but I've seen you, your book is a big W. I saw you where, I think it was was it MPW you worked?
Yep, we just I worked on that one for quite a while, actually, like 6 months. We talked about that one, because I wanted to make sure I was at a good spot. But yeah, I was in the King of actually, let's go with the very long name that they applied to it. It's great because of who it's in memory of, but it was the Psycho Mark Allen King of New England Royal Rumble. Psycho Mark Allen was a guy that used to perform up at IWE in Maine back in the day. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago. So they decided, in bringing back that battle royal, to make it in his memory. And I had a lot of great memories up in Maine. IWE, Larry Huntley, even a little bit with GIW, the now Crowd of Maine Wrestling.
Oh, you
Didn't
know
have
the way.
such a
You go all the way
Yeah.
up to the poutine guy, huh?
Oh yeah, I went to the Presque Isle Mall, 6.5 hour drive. That was insane.
Nice, nice.
So in when they announced that battle royal like over the winter, and so I reached out to them. I said, "I go, hey, if I can be in a good spot mentally, physically, come that battle royal, if you'd have me, I'd love to be a part of it." And so we kept in contact. And once we hit the summertime, and I was feeling good physically, and had started going to the gym again, and was much cleaner up here, we kind of firmed up details and just kind of kept in contact. And yeah, I got to go up. Footage ought to be available soon, but I came out number 3. Lasted about 35 minutes before Eric Johnson, the eventual winner, tossed me out. Had a great time, and not announced yet officially, but I should be back there on November the 16th at the Old Town, or on the island, that wild island.
Yep.
I hear you can get a lot of trouble out there. I don't want to end up in tribal court. I've been told that's a very real thing.
Is that
And
where they did their first show?
say it one more time.
Is that where they did their first show?
I think so, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive. I can't say that I've followed exactly everything they've done, but
No, I, I
great.
I had their first hardcore champion, the Johnny Primer, on my show a few times, and we were like recapping. I brought Meg Lovell on a few times, the ring announcer, because she was
Yeah,
coming in and talking. It's one of those promotions. It's on my list. It's a matter of scheduling. And Friday night shows really hard to drive to Maine from Mass. Saturday shows always much easier. But it's like one of those things I gotta like kind of plan like a long weekend, like go in the morning, get a hotel, spend the night. So I don't want to just do all that in one day with the traffic. But it's definitely it's like on my list. Like I said, I've been trying to get out there, and then one show I was gonna go with my wife something, and then something else came up. But great wrestling coming out of there. Great wrestling all over coming out of Maine in general. Just a whole flux of wrestling you got going on right now. You know, the return of what is it, EWA there with Adam Booker.
yeah,
You know, you have, you got, like I said, Randy Garber doing amazing things in Limitless still. You know, Vacation Land Cup, huge success at the Coliseum. Bringing 1,200 fans to an indie show
yeah.
is no small feat. And
Wild.
like, and you say you get the Crown of Maine way up there. Larry Huntley still doing amazing things with his promotion. Just staples. Every spot's got their staples promotions, and it's really nicely organized in Maine, I feel.
Yeah, it's very well organized. All the areas are well served. One that we left out that still looks like they're trying to get their foothold, but they're using some very quality talent. But Main Event Wrestling,
Yep, yep.
slash GIW. I'm never quite sure who's who in that mix, but they just ran a show over the weekend, and there were some good names on it. And like Calvin Strange, I love Calvin Strange, classic
Yeah.
style. Love seeing him back in the mix. I love that man. Love that man to death. Classic style.
I don't think I've seen him since maybe like The Road, like way
Yeah.
back in the pandemic time. Like there's names you don't see like that, if like you forget about it, and like I remember one like a Oswald project. I used to love that kid, and like he just disappeared. It's like poof, gone.
Yeah, Calvin took a hiatus, as far as I know, but love seeing him back. And the hair, oh my God, the hair is beautiful.
Can't wait, can't wait. But now, when I did see you in Newton, now was that your first match back in wrestling?
Yep, yeah, that was the first one in 4 years.
And it wasn't nothing easy. You were in a street fight. I mean, you were fighting hardcore. Were you known for fighting like mostly hardcore?
Yeah, that's just where I like to go. I'm not quite sure why I've always gravitated towards that. Some people call it garbage wrestling, but there's still a lot of story to be told. Like I see a lot of stuff with weapons in the New England area, the hardcore stuff where we're just doing it to do it. We're not telling stories. We're not teasing. We're not building up. We're just grabbing the plunder and going to town. Um, but I like the violent stuff because it just taps into a certain part of my being that you can't show every day. You can't walk around and do this because otherwise you're going to be in jail or dead. But in the world of professional wrestling, I've got that ability to channel into that, tap into that, and use it for good. So that match with Johnny Psycho, was I planning on doing a street fight? No. Did I love doing it? Absolutely. Do I wish it was a little more violent? You bet. I pushed
Too
about,
many kids in the crowd. Too many kids in the crowd for that.
yeah, I still push the boundary, and I still scared a kid. I at one point took a staple to the forehead and bled right in front of a child, and I heard the mother have to answer that question, "Mommy, is that blood real?" And
Yeah,
she goes, "No,
that wasn't my, that,
she goes, no, it's not real." I held back, but I
yeah,
wanted
I
to
would
say,
have.
it is real, kid.
That wasn't my kid. Yeah, he at least knows that if a staple went into it, would be real. And he's not afraid of the violence in wrestling or in movies, TV, video games. I don't know. It's something about the kid. He likes. The only problem with him is he'll just imitate it. Yeah, today he hit me off the bedpost with a stiff elbow, right to the ribs. I was like, oh,
Uh-oh.
knock the wind out of me, kid.
Roll
But
him into the
no,
school.
I tried. I tried. I reached out to a few trainers. They won't take him until he's 16. He's got like 10 more years to go. But,
Oh, all right. That's fair.
but soon enough, soon enough. Um, but yeah, that was a match. It was a great match to finish off the night. I'm not opposed to deathmatch wrestling, hardcore wrestling. To me, it makes it almost real because like if I was in a street fight for real, like I'm gonna use any weapon that I see that's laying around. I mean, that's usually how street fights are. They're not, you're not gonna just, well, hey, we're gonna fight each other, but don't use that over there, and don't use, that rock there, and don't use that bottle there, and oh, be careful, let's get rid of that over there. It looks a little sharp. It's like, no, two people are fighting. They're fighting. It doesn't matter. People are just using whatever. Logistically, to me, it makes sense that weapons would be involved. But I guess some people, they don't want to see it on every show, and that's the thing. It's not on every show. It's not every match, unless you watch that demo of a show in a match. Like if you watch a GCW show that scares to it, that, or there's a bunch of other death match promotions out there that you could watch, and then that's fine too. Wrestling's very subjective. You kind of take what you want out of it. So like, maybe not everybody loved that, hardcore match at the end, but there was plenty of other matches that didn't involve weapons. It's not like the whole show involved weapons. To me personally, though, I thought it was a great way to end the evening and tell a story. And like you said, telling the story with the violence, it's a way to tell a story. It shows emotion. You're getting somebody that angry that you would staple somebody. That's beyond the realm of finishing them with their finishing move. You've invoked new emotion.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's so many ways you can have fun with it. And there are definitely some folks out there that like to do the violent stuff, and I see them doing it, and I say, I can make you fear for your life if you let me. And there's one of those names up in Maine. To be honest, in fact, he's the MPW Hardcore Champion right now, and I wouldn't want his silly little belt, but I wouldn't mind making JP O'Reilly fear for his life. The Hardcore Maniac. I don't know if you're familiar with old JP, but I see JP out there acting. I believe he actually referred to himself as the gatekeeper of hardcore wrestling up in the state of Maine. I mean, I think I'd put Alexander Lee in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's they call him Hardcore Jesus.
But I mean, if JP wants to keep a gate, I said this to him on Facebook, and I'll say it here so it's in the records of time. I will impale JP O'Reilly on his little gate if he would like me to do that. So if he wants to gatekeep, I don't necessarily want to do violent, hardcore all the time this particular round, but old JP O'Reilly, he just stirs a little something up in my gut. So
He's another
JP,
one, huh? Another one that just want to punch in the face kind of people, huh?
Yeah, you got it, my friend. It's, I'm gonna use the platform here. Just call a few people out who maybe they
Go,
want
go.
they want to tangle with old Bloody Bill. Tony Spencer, how you doing, pal? There you go. That's for Tony Spencer. JP O'Reilly, how you doing, pal? That's for you. Um, that there's other folks that I might be able to call out down the line, but we got to let people do their promoting and all that sort of thing first
Yeah.
before we can talk about those things. We got that
But
Beantown.
it seems like well, you got the Beantown. I was gonna say it seems like Tony Spencer's got an open challenge whenever he wants us to come and get his ass beat.
And yeah, anytime that he wants to stop hiding behind some phony injuries or whatever he says is why he's not in the ring, retired or whatever. Yeah, anytime Tony wants to come out, and I don't need it to be a death match either. I'll just punch him into the ground with my fists. We don't need to do the weapons. I mean, if he wants to have a weapon, we can bring a steel chair. I like a good steel chair match. Nothing but steel chairs. Just beat a man into the ground. But yeah, Tony Spencer definitely has an open invitation anytime he wants. And I know there are a lot of people around New England that would love to see me cave his skull in. So, Tony, if you're listening, I'll do it for free. I'll cave in your skull for free. I don't even need any money. I'll just cave your skull in. It'll be wonderful. Wonderful time.
That's great. But yes, there's also yes, Beantown promotion coming up in Revere. I saw your name in the mix. The owner of that he hit me up. He said he asked me if I would mind doing half of the commentary for that show, and I was like, yeah, definitely. And he's telling me all these names, and I'm like, well, I know this guy, I know that guy, and I saw your name. I'm like, oh, I definitely know that guy. That's awesome to see. Like I said, if you're in it and and you're out there, I like seeing you out there and doing it, and that's great because I don't have to go all the way to not that I don't like going to Maine, but now we're getting into winter season, so if I can see you locally, I'd rather not go into Maine in the winter.
Oh yeah, no, I've done that before. One time we did to Brewer, Maine. It's usually about 3.5, 340. It took us 6.5 hours during a snowstorm to get up to Brewer, Maine. Wrestled for 18 minutes, got back in the car and drove home. So we did about 10 hours of driving that day for 18 minutes, and it was 10 minutes too long. The match itself, it was just full of miscues. Like it wasn't a bad match, but we kept missing where we needed to be, and it like almost led to a record loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy stuff. But yeah, no, the Beantown Wrestling Alliance, that should be fun. October 3rd. I always forget what town we're going to be in, but it's October 3rd.
Yeah, I think that's
Whether I'm in that,
Revere, Mass. I think it is Revere.
there
Yeah.
it is, Revere. Whether I'm in the Rumble, whether I have a standalone match, I'm going to go there and cause some chaos like only I can. And everybody can do their own chaos in their own way. But the fun with me is I black out when I go out there. So you never know what's going to happen. Once that music hits, whether it's the Era of Violence theme or Dimmu Borgir, whatever song I've got for that night, once that song hits, I black out. And we just go to the races and look to hurt some folks. So if it's a bunch of people in a rumble, awesome. If it's a bunch of people in a match or just one other person in a match, cool. I look forward to seeing what the folks at B-Town Wrestling Alliance or the BWA, what they have in store for me. But at the end of the day, I say that this round is about having fun. And the fun for me is going to be hurting some people, collecting some limbs, maybe even grabbing some blood to keep in a vial from a few of them. My name's Bloody Billy Vaux after all. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I believe the folks at BWA are going to be able to really help me out in terms of being able to unleash the last 90 to 120 days of my life on folks by the time we get there. And same thing the next night with Supernova Wrestling, where I
Yeah,
know,
that's what I was gonna say. You got a double night. I saw you announce this. I'm like back to back. That's awesome.
yep, Supernova Wrestling, we got a four-way haunted something or other for the Infinity and Beyond Championship. I don't really care about the championship, so that's why I'm not going to bother learning the names, but I have learned the names of the people I'm going to hurt. We got Perez, we got Deadwood, we've got Red Dog, who is the champion. I hope those fellas all have their living wills in order. I hope they have powers of attorney set up. I hope that before they come to Taunton, Massachusetts, they kiss their loved ones and even hug them goodbye, because there's a good chance that they're not going to come back. Because, like I said, I don't necessarily want to do violence and all that sort of stuff all the time. I kind of just want to go and fight people, throw fists. But Supernova Wrestling, they want to put me in something where we're all going to be coming with some sort of Halloween-themed weapon. Sounds kind of hokey to me, but I already know what I'm going to bring. And
But
I,
they invited you. They invited you though, knowing your reputation with weapons. That's kind of ballsy.
yeah, and it's on them. And, each competitor gets to bring their own, or maybe the promotion thinks they're going to pick it, but I know what I'm going to bring. And you'll have to be in Taunton to figure it out to see what I'm going to bring. But I will tell you that it will be a very lovely instrument that will allow me to cave in some skulls, maybe choke a person or two, and work on collecting those limbs or drawing some blood from somebody to stick in a vial for my own personal collection. These three individuals in Taunton, Mass, they don't know what's coming for them. They don't know me, and I don't know them. But I'm not going to bother getting to know them because they're not going to be known after October 4th. So Perez and Deadwood and Red Dog, if the three of you happen to be watching right now, I'm coming for you. And I'm not coming for championships. I'm coming to hurt all three of you. I'm coming to take one of your limbs. I'm coming to break a bone, cause some internal bleeding. It does not matter to me. The fun on this round is inflicting pain and punishment on people. That's it. Like, I live a very nice life these days. Personally, I love the positivity, gratitude, and all those types of things. But when that bell rings, all the pain that I go through every day to divert myself from, yeah, we've just been diverting that into a pool for when we step into the ring. And that pool will soon be made up of everybody's blood, guts, limbs, whatever buzzwords you want to put on it. I'm a twisted individual and I'm coming to hurt some people. It's going to happen on October 3rd. It's going to happen on October 4th. And it's going to happen November 16th up in the state of Maine and any other time that it can happen. I'm just going to hurt some people. Like they said in the movie The Town, where are we going? I don't know, but we're going to hurt some people. I'm going to hurt some people. And maybe some people are going to hurt me too. And that's going to feel really good. It's all going to feel really good. I got that violence lust now, Versace.
So that's the thing. You're back into it, so it's like the pain's there, but you can inflict it, and it's just. I can see it in your eyes. The magic is back. It's like you're into it.
You bet, my friends. It's
It's gonna be a bloody
been,
rest of this year.
yeah. Whether it's my blood or somebody else's blood, let's spill some blood somewhere somehow. But we got some chances coming up, absolutely, and there might even be another chance for something else that is yet to be unveiled.
Never know. It's wrestling. Anything can happen. You could show up anywhere. Cards are always subject to change. You never know when they could call you.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of it. I got a few more questions. One has been, what would you say your proudest match is? Like the proudest moment match you've had?
Proudest moment match I've had. That's an easy answer. August 4th, 2017. The Era of Violence, MSP, the Harris Country Club, and the Street, a four-way TLC match for the IWE Tag Team Championship. That was the day that I accomplished the only goal that I set for myself when I came out with Rob Marsh and Chad Epic, and that was to win a tag team championship with Rob Marsh. We did it in 11 months, and it was the greatest night that I've had in wrestling because I did it with two of my best friends and with some of the greatest people I've ever worked with. Danger Kid, Aiden Agro, the now BRG at the time, still Todd Harris, Malik Logan, who's disappeared from the scene, but he was getting so good. Black Rose, the former Angel Cross, and the Elite Terrell. All of those guys were just amazing. The match was wild. It was bonkers. We spilled blood. Danger Kid jumped off of a basketball hoop. That night, August 4th, 2017, amazing night. And I had everybody that mattered there. Wonderful experience.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great night. And MSP is a tremendous team. They're one of those teams, like I said, I first saw when I first went in for my first show back in the indie scene. They happened to be working it. And again, I was listening to oh, this is what indie, tag team wrestling looks like. This, these guys are coming out together. They have a name. They're the main, at the time it was the Mainstay Posse. They didn't shorten it yet, and it was all three of them. Alexander Lee was there, with Danger Kid and Aggro, and they're two people that would probably follow around for the next, 4 or 5 years because they kept doing things bigger and bigger and bigger, getting all the way, onto television. I saw them on AEW, so it's like it's tremendous to see the come up and the people that they work their way and how they do it and seeing them start in these small little halls, and then you do get to see them on TV. You do get to see them get to the next level. I'm sure you have a lot of friends that are on TV or been there. Because New England is a hot spot. We get a lot of wrestlers that are some of the best in the world.
Absolutely. I can think of off the top of my head, one half of the Iron Savages, not Bear Bronson, but the other one, Boulder. I don't know. He used to be known as Beefcake. He beat the crap out of me one time at an event at the XWA Event Center, not for XWA, but for somebody else. But that's the only one. Wrecking Ball Legursky. He's not AEW, but he's NWA. I got squashed by him one time. That was a great experience at Sully Banger's old Providence Wrestle Party.
Yep. And then I got a fan question. Somebody asked, and I normally don't get one, but somebody asked, "What do you think of pro wrestler Ace Barry?"
Barry Ace.
Barry Ace, yes. That was the question.
What do I think about Barry Ace? I'm gonna be nice. As easy as it would be to rip Barry Ace to shreds. Barry Ace is a very unique person with a unique set of talents that serve him in a unique way. And every time that I am around Barry Ace, it is an interesting experience.
It sounds like when I take mushrooms.
Yes, actually, very comparable to a trip on hallucinogens. Yeah, Barry Ace is a human hallucinogen.
Okay, I mean, I can't say nothing wrong with that, and it probably doesn't cost as much. So, I mean, hey, what are you going to do?
I'd rather spend the money on the mushrooms.
Okay, I mean,
hey. Barry something.
Hey, I get these questions. I don't write them. I asked you mine, but once in a while, somebody will ask me a question. It doesn't happen very often, I'll be honest. Not very often, but once in a while, because I'll promote somebody will say something. And I'll be honest, I'm not the best at promoting people, like saying they're coming on the show. So sometimes I'll remember, though. And with you, I did, and somebody hit me up and asked that question. And I couldn't even remember the guy's name, unfortunately. But
I have a guess based on it being a Barry Ace question. My guess would be, I guess I'll use the name. Buck DeRoss would be my first guess, who went on the Leo Connor show and basically turned it into a 1 hour Barry Ace rip. Great episode if you haven't watched it.
Oh, no, I haven't. But I will. I'll check it out. I'll see what's going on with that. I like I said, I don't really, I do something different in wrestling. When I started in 2021, really podcasting, in 2020, I started opening up. In 2021, when I hit the scene, I really wanted to do something that would be different. So I tried not to get into the shoot side of pro wrestling. Tried to really keep it on the kayfabe and keep it on the positive stuff that was happening. And if I saw negative stuff or heard negative stuff, because you always hear shit, I kind of just wouldn't look at it or wouldn't talk about it or just wouldn't even bring it on my show. I just want, fans to see wrestling for what it is. I think it's a great escape in life. I think it's one of the greatest ways of telling stories. For me, it's my soap opera. It's my TV show. It's, it's what I enjoy. And again, it's my escape at the end of the week. It might be a busy escape, but it's still an escape. I get to walk into the, promoters and the wrestlers' world for, a couple of hours and not worry about what's going on outside. So I always wanted, just always wanted to showcase that. So I always try to just, like I said, stay on the positivity side of wrestling. So I don't really get into like the ripping and people, doing shit. When I hear stuff, I kind of like, okay, that's someone I'm not going to use, or that's someone I'm not going to bring on my show, or stay away from that person, or this and that. And I just kind of cautiously move around it all.
I gotcha.
Just because sometimes I don't, necessarily, even know if fans even want to see that. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're like to the casual fan, it just looks too. So I've talked to casual fans, I've been to WWE events, obviously, and I'll try to like pitch ideas to them. Or not pitch ideas, but talk to them about indie wrestling.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times to them, the casual fan, all indie wrestling is just backyard. It's all lumped into one thing, backyard. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, there's a whole thriving underbelly of really good wrestling. Whether even in what you're watching now, they pull talent from places that is the underbelly of wrestling. WWE used to use Florida's championship wrestling for their underbelly. There is a thriving, thing, and some fans just don't get that there's an underscene that doesn't take place in the backyard, takes place in nice halls with good wrestlers that are right under that talent level of getting onto TV.
Yeah, I got you, man. I got you.
So like I'm always trying to fight that image too, because I've seen a lot of people. I've seen people, like I said, move on. I remember seeing Anthony Green, reffing, and now he's all across the country doing all sorts of wild things, and for the name of indie wrestling. And to me that's like a nice come up. That's a nice story. And I've seen that all over the place. People that grow, progress. Even like you said, you came from WW and you got yourself out of there. You became a successful tag team. You moved yourself on, and now you're back in the mix. You're doing more shows. Some nice promotions, some nice new stuff coming in your way. That's a come up. And not only that, you're in a much better mental spot, which is even better. Because some people would have just said, forget the mental stuff, kept going until again, they burn themselves out and can't do it anymore. Any of it.
No, I definitely did that to myself though. I kept going, burnt myself out, burnt everybody else around me. Yeah, not an ideal way to get to this better mental place, but at the end of the day, we got to be happy for that, grateful for that. But I just don't want to mischaracterize and say that I was mindful of the burnout stuff. 2020 to 2024, 60 days ago, even brutal, absolutely brutal. Now I can recognize those burnout signs and all that stuff, but I don't want to put that idea out there that I've always had that smart together or anything like that. Like
No,
I'm
no,
still figuring it out as I go.
I feel like a
Uh,
lot of it, even in myself, because I sometimes have to, scale back what I do podcast wise. I'll book 3, 4,
yep,
5 shows in a day. And my wife's like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm, going, ballistic. I'm drinking 3 energy drinks. I'm running around like crazy,
yep,
and so I have to scale myself back, calm myself down. So, but, I don't see that until hindsight. So the hindsight is really where you kind of look and I kind of review it all and take it all in and kind of make adjustments going, wow, I was really going too hard. Like I need to slow that down because like look what all the after effects. But again, during it, no, nothing. Everything's going great. I'm doing great. Oh my God, look how productive everything is.
yeah,
You sacrifice yourself for that productivity because you think that's what it's going to take, and sometimes that's not what it really takes. What it takes is a calm, cool, collected mind and just being chill and in a happy spot. But yeah, like I said, I like just seeing that all. I like seeing positive people do positive things in wrestling. You're not a name that I see, with a lot of controversy or bullshit. People that go and see your match, they say they like Billy Vaux. They like to see the violence. People go to that, I've heard only good things. I only saw good things. I mean, granted, now I have to go back and watch because I did do a lot of recording of that first one when you fought Theodore. But I do remember your last one in Newton, and I was very happy, that you were there as a ref, and then I didn't even know you were wrestling. And when you wrestled, I popped even probably louder. And like I said, it was just a great match in general, and just seeing what you do and seeing it live, I guess, because I've seen video clips, I've looked back, just being your friend and stuff, but seeing live footage was just really cool for me. Again, putting faces to people I see online and talk to, because I think I'd already talked to and messaged you, or maybe engage with you prior to that too. But yeah, I'm very excited though for all the stuff you got coming up. Really am. Gonna try to get to those MPW shows one of these, but like I said, I will be calling all that action. Me and this kid Nick for Beantown, so that should be fun.
Oh yeah.
That'll be a fun time. And again, I can't wait to see what kind of violence you can really bring to Boston because it needs a little violence, I think.
Everything needs a little bit of violence, and I am just the person to be bringing the violence because I've got plenty of violent thoughts kicking around up here.
Now, let me ask you one more. Where can people find you? I noticed you have a nice Twitch going on, right? You do gaming?
Uh, Used to. It's all dormant, but whatever's left of social media, for me, I fly very low under the radar. Like I don't have a Facebook like page. I don't like the stress that comes with managing one of those. I also don't take on fans on my personal Facebook, so you really can't find me on Facebook. If I'm working somewhere, it's on them to put it out, and then I'll share it on my page and share it out. But so yeah, no Facebook for me. Geez, what is it on X, Twitter? I think it's like that Vox. I think it's that Vox guy on Twitter. I go on Twitter here and there, X, whatever you call it.
So
Twitch is
mostly
still,
writings on the wall, dormant bathrooms, and scary halls.
yeah, exactly. If you want to find me or connect with me, you're just gonna have to go where I go. Because otherwise, I keep my presence very low. But the Twitch channel is still there. It's at Bloody Billy Vaux. I haven't done anything in months. I can't say that I probably will anytime soon. I did have a lot of fun doing that, but with all the different things that happened in life, it just didn't make sense to do anymore. So yeah, Twitch and YouTube for all that gaming stuff was at Bloody Bill Vaux. But yeah, they're both inactive right now. So yeah, if you want to see me doing my thing, well, somebody will tell you that I'm going to be there, and then it's on you to be there.
I
And if
like
you're
that.
not,
Word of
then
mouth, word of mouth. You gotta know, you gotta have an inside source, you gotta really be paying attention. But if you are, you can find you. I like that.
yeah, there it is, my friend. As Sting once said, the only thing that's for sure about me is that nothing's for sure. So we'll have to see what's sure as people say that things are sure. Yeah.
Well, I love it. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been my pleasure, honestly, having this conversation and just, getting to know you a little bit better. Can't wait
Oh
to
yeah,
see you
dude.
in action again. Can't wait to see what's in store. Like you said, you never know what can happen, and that's where the fun of it is.
Hell yeah, my friend.
And thank you everybody at home for watching. And as always, support indie wrestling. Besides, Stoner out!
Get your tickets now for Beantown Wrestling Alliance, the Beachmont Rumble, October 3rd at the Beachmont VFW in Revere. Just $15, folks. In today's economy, that's a steal. Doors open at 6:30.